Yo, everybody, what's going on? Welcome to Unfiltered episode 17. I'm your host, ChanManV. Going to be discussing lots of WCS EU business with Stephano retiring today and Grubby having a crazy day yesterday. Also going to be talking about an axle toss discussion with Steven the other night concerning positivity and negativity in the community and just really the effects of it. And we'll talk about the International 3 with viewership, the in-game client, and oh my god, lots of shit going on here over there. But we'll be talking about just TI3 and just the upcoming big weekend. And then last but not least, the giveaway. I'm doing a summer giveaway that I'll give you some information on. But to start things off, I'm going to introduce my co-host each and every week, the very pale and bright Destiny today. What's up, man?
What's up, buddy? How you doing?
Oh, shit, man. Did you get sleep today, dude?
I'm rolling the sleep schedule forward, man.
Oh, all right, cool. We got a special guest today. It's going to be the first time I think I've ever had you on a show, right? One of my shows.
Yeah, man, actually.
It's Semmler, and you probably know him from the Good Studios, the Good Show in particular, and he just hosted the Asus ROG tournament last week. Did a great job there, man.
Thanks, man. It was a lot of fun.
Good stuff. I was hoping
it was a lot. It's hosting is brief periods of adrenaline and long periods of boredom. So
really?
It's a lot of that. It was good fun. It was good fun. We had great games, so that's all that really mattered.
Definitely. Didn't get to see any kind of more photos of you, Caldor and Idra. Like I was just seeing a bunch of those photos of those two all day. So
there was if you EFFIT, is it EFFIT? I don't know. There's a website actually that just posted like fucking 200 photos from the event.
Oh,
there's
yeah.
a lot of good ones of the finals as well. So that was pretty neat. Was going through those earlier. They're somewhere on the internet. I'll tweet them or something.
All right, cool. Sounds
But I mean,
good.
Caldor and Idra, man.
Caldor and Idra were pretty awesome, I have to say. They were definitely a good combo, good duo. And then we have Henry here too. Henry's going to be joining us. He's going to be doing all the Q&A or going through all the questions for us on Reddit. So if you have any questions for us today, post them on the Reddit thread, which is right here for those of you who haven't seen it yet today. And we'll ask your questions at the end of the show. All right, let's get started with the first topic, which is, I think I have as Stephano retiring, and we could just kind of make it a WCS EU topic since a lot of people wanted to hear about our thoughts on the Grubby thing yesterday too. But we'll start with Stephano. Steven, I don't know if you saw earlier, but Stephano lost his 2 WCS EU matches, which it spells the end of his career as a competitive StarCraft 2 player. Just kind of sad. The games weren't very good, I have to say. He lost pretty easily and handily in them. Did you see it, Semmler?
Yeah, I was watching earlier. He got shat on. That was pretty sad. It's not the way you want to go out, that's the shame of it. It was like I was hoping that he would at least take a map or two, but that he hasn't been practicing. That he's just been messing around, getting ready for school, etc., partying, summer. So
yeah,
no real surprise, I guess.
What sucks is that he was making it sound like he was going to make a last ride or a last push, with the Foreigner Hope or that Foreigner Flame or whatever, right? But it didn't really look like it.
I think we can give that flame over to Grubby now.
Yeah, I guess so. But so what do you guys think about Stephano retiring? I mean, do you think it's going to have a pretty big impact on the scene? What do you think, Steven?
Not to be mean or whatever, but Stephano's pretty much been clocked out over the past couple weeks. Like everybody needs to know this is kind of coming. He hasn't really done much. I think the only thing people were looking forward to is that he said he was going to be streaming, I think, for 3 days or something in a row.
3 weeks.
3 weeks in a row.
Oh,
yeah.
Shit. Yeah. Oh, man, those contracted hours.
That's exactly what it is.
Dude, you got to get that money.
Yeah. So,
yeah, I think you're right. I mean, he has been kind of quiet for the last few months. I mean, I can't even remember the last thing that Stephano really... I don't know, what's the last tournament he had a really, really good showing? Do you remember?
Oh, dude.
Any of you guys? No, that's exactly
I don't know, man. It's
right.
been a while.
So yeah, so it's kind of sad, but it's definitely end of an era though. Stephano's been holding the the foreigner torch for a long time now. Yeah, since IPL 3 really, and that's been what, like 2 years now, roughly. Roughly
Yeah,
2
that was
years.
before he joined the EG Pro Gamer retirement program, I think.
Yeah, that's true. That's Steven's labeled it that since last week. Where what'd you say? Where pro gamers go to die or something?
Retire. I'm sorry.
Retire. Sorry, retire. My bad. Yeah, so I don't know. For me, it's kind of sad. For me, I it's like I haven't always agreed with Stephano off the, outside of playing the way he is, but definitely as a player, I've always been a huge fan of Stephano's and rooting for him. So shed a tear today for I guess one of my favorite or longtime favorite players, going away. It's kind of a bummer. Need you to come back, Steven. Fill that role, man.
Yeah, I'm gonna step right in there. Don't worry.
So what does Stephano retiring mean to you, Semmler?
Pardon me?
What does Stephano retiring mean to you? You know Stephano. I mean, you know Stephano better than I do.
He was kind of the French Flame, I suppose, at least as far as that was concerned. Now you kind of have like Daishi stepping up, who's doing well, but for the longest time Stephano was like the foreigner who could actually go toe to toe with the Koreans, despite the fact that he goofed off and didn't work and that he was famous for it. He was still able to take matches and take series off these guys, and now for the past 6 months at least, we haven't heard much. And it's just like he kind of just faded away. So for me, it was like going from this guy who you could look up to as, potentially the answer, the fucking ultimate weapon to the Koreans, and then it just kind of didn't pan out, didn't happen.
You think it was a waste?
Now we have to kind of turn to guys like Wellmu, I guess, who just went through first in his group today. So
Well,
that's
do
cool.
you think it was a waste of talent, given that Stephano? I mean, I always thought Stephano had some. He was just very talented at the game naturally, and he practiced. He definitely practiced more than he came off. He'd always say he never practiced and stuff. He definitely practiced, but he definitely didn't practice as hard as a lot of these other players that we see, especially in Europe too. So would you say you think it was a waste of his talent, the way he was? Anybody?
Well, go ahead, Steven.
I hate French people. No, go ahead. You can do it.
You hate me, man? You hate me? Seriously?
Wait, are you really French?
Half.
Oh, okay. I only hate.
He only hates half of you, dude.
I mean, it's a really hard question to answer. Like, do you hate that he wasted potential? I mean, I don't know. He kind of he seemed pretty talented, and that he was able to get very far. He had a very unique style when he first started, but he didn't seem like he wanted to work very much past that. Like, I don't know. Like, my impression of Stephano was he had a really good style and he was a really smart player, and he got very good very fast playing that very smart style. But then once it kind of started to get figured out, he just kind of like stayed pretty good, and then that was it. And then he kind of fizzled out.
Yeah, and I mean that's exactly what happened. That's why I mean, like, given that he got to a certain point so fast, what generally happens when in those scenarios is that person just keeps he keeps pushing, right? He keeps pushing himself all the way up. And I think you're right. I think he just kind of got to that level of success. It's like the minute he won a tournament, I think that was it, right?
Maybe, I don't know. I just think that to the amount of push. You ever overclock shit before?
Mm-hmm.
So when you overclock a processor, you get to a certain point, right? To where in order to get it to the next clock, you would have to up the voltage a dramatic amount. I think that it kind of happened that way with Stephano, such that he was pretty good, and he got really good doing a certain style a certain way. But in order for him to stay at that level and to get better, would have required a lot more like actual effort on his part. And I don't know if he was the kind of guy that wanted to sink all that time into like practicing StarCraft 2 to get good,
Yeah, I think that sums it up really well. Mm-hmm.
I guess just based on what I say, so I'm not entirely sure.
No, I think that sums it up pretty nicely. Just because it also comes back. In Control tweeted earlier, he did something where he was like, "Why is everybody so frustrated with this? Because this is a guy who made a shit ton of money, got to do what he wanted for 2.5 years, traveled the world, and he's going out wealthy. Like he's going out in a decent spot to go into college. So it's like college debt. forget about it. You know, he's going to live comfy while he does his studies, and it's just going to give him this kind of like step up, you know, an easier way into, you know, the future. So it was just his decision where he was like, well, like, you know, Destiny says, is like, do I really want to sink that much time and effort into this sort of thing where I may not even be able to actually continue making the money that I made a couple of years ago? Or do I want to bow out now and, you know, after considering my options, bow out now and be like, all right, you know, I've got a couple $100,000 in the bank with an apartment in Paris. You know, go to school and see what happens. It's not like he can't come back either, you know?
Yeah. So, you know, fuck being rational and shit, okay? Like, I'm a fucking fan, right? So I want to see these players, you know, become the best, right? I want to see them beat the Koreans.
God damn it, ChanManV.
So that's why we're fucking disappointed, right? That they're leaving. It's like, yeah, sure, he wants to go to school. Real life comes in. That's like the normal ass, you know, rhetoric that we always see, right? With esports, and you know, I'd like to see that stop at some point, you know, when we can actually see somebody that's really committed fully, right, to esports and have success. Because all we've seen is like the people that are fully committed end up failing.
You know, this reminds me of that episode. You ever see Lizzie McGuire show on Disney Channel?
Oh,
No,
God.
There was an episode.
Okay.
You've never
Alright.
seen Lizzie McGuire?
I've seen it. I've seen it.
Man, it was a wholesome family fun. There was this episode of
It's
Lizzie
Hillary
McGuire
Duff, dude. It's Hillary
where
Duff.
Hillary Duff, as Lizzie McGuire, finds out that she has this special ability to be really good at this thing called rhythmic gymnastics, but it's like super nerdy and really lame. And even though she's talented at it, she only does one recital and then she quits because she hates it. And so you're kind of like all those fans, you know, that saw that Stephano was really good at StarCraft, but then you're kind of mad that he quit it and he didn't take it further. So like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, Stephano's just one of you know, just several people. Yeah, somebody mentioned Snoot. Yeah, Snoot's. I think Snoot's going to be one of the guys that are going to be carrying the Foreigner Flame. You know, he's got that work ethic that I think, you know, Stephano didn't have, right? Is he as naturally talented? I don't know. Like, I'm telling you, like, something about Stephano when I would watch him play, or there was just something a little bit more he had than I think a lot of other people, just naturally, just the way he felt and deduced the game as he was playing. I mean, it sounds kind of weird, but I don't know. It's just something that I kind of seen a lot of players.
Regardless of whether or not you love him or hate him, I think most people would agree that he had a pretty good knack for playing. I think more so than some other people might.
Yeah, and we just
wasn't
need that.
he? I mean, wasn't he the guy who basically started a whole style for Zerg and ZVP? Like, wasn't he the one with the 11-minute Roach max? That was him.
Yeah.
And he kind of just shaped the way that ZVP went for several months.
Yeah.
Until, well,
Or he
got,
more
you know,
more so he
broken.
showed that just what good control and good surrounds, you know, perfect surrounds could really.
Sure, but I agree too that he directed the Zerg metagame in a couple matchups.
Yeah, so you know,
it's something that comes to pass. That's how you have to look at it, you know. And the guy, like I'm just more worried about who am I going to get drunk with at events now, because Stephano, at least you could count on him bringing a bottle of soju or something, and it being a pretty good time.
Oh, I'm sure you'll have no trouble finding at least one person.
Yeah,
it might be a different person.
There's the boss in the chat. He usually looks out.
Yeah, the boss is
Stephano at
definitely.
least.
Yeah, DreamHack. You got Robert for sure. Might be a different person every event, but you'll always have somebody. But yeah, so I think, you know, losing him, I think a lot of people kind of feel sad about it just because there's no specific person we can point to right now as the Foreigner Hope. Maybe a handful of them that could be it. And, you know, Snoot being one of them, somebody mentioned. Maybe Naniwa, maybe Loose Fronts, maybe some of those guys.
Yeah,
but
real talk, what happened to White Raw? Is he still playing? I haven't heard from him in a long time.
He's working for Twitch now as a CIS representative. And he's still got, I mean, as far as I know, he's still got his endorsements, but he's working for Twitch now.
What's the CIS?
I didn't know that.
Wait,
As
what
in,
does
like,
that
in
stand for?
Ukraine, as in helping, like, Ukrainian streamers, etc. Like, he's helping them out with that stuff. It's like Rise. Rise got picked up by Twitch as well.
Oh, okay, got it.
You know, same sort of position, same sort of thing. He's just doing that now.
Gotcha.
Wow, I didn't know he was working for Twitch. I thought he was still doing the, you know, TTE, basically ambassador thing,
But
right?
isn't he still with TTE? That's the thing. I never heard of him getting dropped from TTE.
Yeah, I'm pretty
TTE
sure he
Sports.
is.
So
So
I'm assuming that he's picking up a Twitch paycheck, and then he's picking up a Twitch or a TT paycheck, and then whatever.
Life,
He isn't streaming anymore though. Like he was streaming.
Yeah, I
he said
haven't-
that he wanted to stream a little bit the other day, but I haven't seen him.
well, he's making Twitch money without streaming. I mean, that's good stuff, right?
Yeah, that's the best situation, isn't it?
That's the way to go. No, I'm sure he's doing better, much better than streaming nowadays. Oh my god. But yeah,
Well,
so I haven't. I mean, he's still playing a few tournaments. I saw Wirral played in DreamHack, I think. Took a game off somebody actually pretty good too. I can't even remember who it was, but
Well, you got to keep in mind it was something that we saw this weekend with at Asus when I interviewed Happy, and he was like, "Yeah, I don't enjoy the game, but I make good enough money where I live comfortably where I'm at right now, you know." And it's the kind of thing where it's like you're just gonna keep doing it because for a minimum of effort, streaming, etc., you make a really decent living in Ukraine's country, anywhere like that. You know, you make really good money off of this, or for them, it's considered a good salary, which is kind of like what Happy is claiming is his drive. It's just like, I'm just in it for the money. I don't care about the game. So I'm wondering, you know, like White Rod, he's like, okay, I'm just, you know, I'm in it still, but now I'm getting it straight from the source. I'm coming straight from Twitch. And Kitten, what the fuck are you doing? Stop attacking my goddamn mic stand.
you guys with cats, man.
This one in
Steven's guy.
particular, man,
Steven's
he's the
going
rage
too.
kitty. He's the adventure kitty. He's the one who jumped off the desk and caused Trance to rage and leave the studio. And he's full derp right now.
Well, okay. So, anyways, on a separate note, on WCS EU, you know, we have Stephano obviously today with the big news, but yesterday, all you could see on Reddit was basically grubby either clips or gifs or articles or whatever, and you know, Grubby obviously went through to the round of 8, being MVP. Everybody kind of forgot that Hasuabs beat MVP too in the whole melee, but I do have to say that that moment with Grubby. Is kind of the antithesis of some of the stuff that we were talking about with Stephano. I mean, you can tell the guy has a lot of other a lot of other responsibilities too, but you can tell that Grubby practices as much as he can possibly practice, and you know, seeing him win, I think a lot of StarCraft 2 fans, I think, really feel it when Grubby wins, and Grubby obviously feels it too. He gets emotional, right? There's not many people that get as emotional as Grubby winning like semifinal matches and quarterfinal matches against top players. So what do you guys think of that? I guess that moment, and that, you know, just Grubby winning in general, and what it can mean to StarCraft esports. Steven?
You want to take a crack at this, Steven, or you want me to go?
What can it mean to StarCraft esports?
I don't know.
It just means
I mean,
like
it makes
he's a white
Grubby's
boy. He
fans
has a
happy.
soul.
I mean, Grubby's fans are happy. I don't think it's gonna like save the universe. Like,
Oh, come on. Okay.
No, it's cool. It's cool that he shows emotion. You know, we're not having like a Tasia after Home Story Cup 7 moment where he just sits there and he's like, "Yep, not even
Yeah.
gonna crack a smile." You know, Grubby gets through to round of 8 and he's like bawling. You know, like that's cool. That's cool. You gotta love that emotion because especially StarCraft 2. StarCraft 2 is one of those games where the players are so wound up so tight that they just don't show anything. And so when you actually have a player that comes out and starts shouting and yelling, that's fucking awesome for me, because all of a sudden it's like, yes, this guy is actually expressing something. Like, this is how much it meant to him. He did fucking awesome. Great. You know, more on him. Although he's going to piss off players like Stardust, because Stardust was actually bitching about that. He's like, it really kind of bugs me when people yell, you know, when I'm trying to play and, you know, they win. It's like, okay, cool, you know, you won, but please don't yell, you know, because it bothers me. I was like, Stardust, man, you really are.
Get fucking over it, man.
there's like
I
a
mean,
special
I'm sorry.
form of autism that Koreans harbor when it comes to like mannered games that I don't understand at all.
Dude, that's the thing that we're missing.
Like,
You know, we're
I've
missing.
heard, like, I hear random shit
Yeah.
like that. Like, Koreans take that manner shit really seriously. But then you see them, like, dance units and manner meal and shit at the end of, like, GSLs, which is the equivalent to saying, get the fuck out of my game, you scrub piece of shit, like it's over. And it's like, and then they talk about manner shit afterwards. It's like, I don't understand. I don't know. That's really,
Well,
that's, like, really weird shit to
Well,
me.
the classic case of it was like Naniwa just getting completely trapped in a in a catch-22 in a way, like at MLG when Polt was freaking like BMing him, and then he goes and Polt comes over and shakes his hand, and Anywal doesn't shake his hand, and he gets fucking shit on for it. So it's
flavor of the week, man. It's whoever does something on a slow day. You know, if there's nothing to talk about, they're gonna shit. They're gonna shit all over you. If shit's going on, it's gonna be like, oh, okay, whatever. You know, that's just not anymore.
Well, I mean, the thing for me, like with Grubby and showing emotion, is that's the thing that StarCraft 2 is just missing. Period. We don't have people jumping up and screaming after they win, or
Ghosty user.
Did he?
Shout outs to Ghosty user. Yeah, he was actually the one shouting the loudest this weekend. He was fucking awesome.
Did he? I never saw it.
He's dude. He let me see. It wasn't against Luciferon. It was the match before that. He shouted so loud when he won because he wasn't supposed to win. Oh, it was against Project. It was against Project. This is when he beat Project. And Kaldor and Idra were like, "What the fuck is going on?" Like,
Project.
Who's shouting? It's that one of the Russian players, the Russian Korean guy who speaks 3 languages fluently and who's amazing, and then who plays Terran and got into round of 16.
Obviously not amazing enough.
yeah, boy. Well, that's the thing, man. He doesn't live in Korea.
Well, I thought Mike would have been, or Ghost User would have been screaming after the one that got him in the round of 8, whatever it was.
The Lucifron game?
Oh, was it the Lucifron game? Yeah.
I went to get him, and he was shaking. He was standing by his thing, his chair with like his hands just going like that.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
Yeah, that was amazing. Yeah, so anyways, we're missing more of that. We're missing more of that on camera, too. I mean, you just see, like, one of the biggest things of the internationals, too, right, and one is, like, seeing all those guys reacting after each game. Like, it wasn't even the finals. You just see all those teams reacting and people getting on camera. The COD folks at MLG just going nuts after each win and pounding their chest and shit. I mean, we need more of that shit.
That's old CS shit, though, man. That's like when you go to when you go to a CS tournament, like a CS LAN. Yeah. Those guys go ape shit. They had
like the old videos of like Jason Lake and shit. And cry.
Yeah, man. Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm talking about. And like there was an interview that he did, or I don't know if it was an interview or a talk or something, where he was like, "Well, we tried to carry that atmosphere over to StarCraft 2 players, and we actually had a player leave because he didn't like it." Like he was standing behind the guy shouting or something, and the guy he was getting on this guy's nerves so much that the guy just fucking left the team.
Dude, I'm tearing up thinking of some of those. I don't know shit about CS, dude, but like the end of some of those matches were like a fucking Kodak moment, like the emotions and the passions and everything. It's pretty crazy.
It delivers every time, man. I was down in Copenhagen, and what was tripping me out is I found it like this was like on the border of annoying, but the German team alternate attacks, they had one of those snappers, like the wooden things with the lip, and you spin it around a stick and it clicks, click, 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 So every round they would get up and fucking shout and then spin this thing just to make noise, just to let the other guys who were sitting like fucking 2 rows down know, yeah, we just took a round off you assholes, we're coming for more, like every single time.
So here's a trivia question. When's the last time a StarCraft 2 player got a warning during a tournament?
Whoa.
Didn't anyone get like temporarily banned from some shit for the 4-Pro Brush? That was a long time ago.
I'm talking about a warning at the tournament from an admin.
All right, Ghost User got warned this weekend because the Lucifron game where they were on, where it was that horrible split map where there was locusts, sport colors.
Yeah.
If anybody watches the tournament, you guys know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
that one. Yeah. Apparently, he was chatting up with Lucifron afterwards, and he's like, "Why don't you just GG? Why don't you just get out?"
Yep.
And the admin is like, he comes up to him after. He's like, "No, you beat him in the game. You don't beat him in the chat. Like keep it to yourself. This is a warning."
Obviously, you don't believe in total victory.
Total victory. What's this?
Total victory. You got to win on all fronts, man.
Shit, man. You taking lessons from Jay.
Comprehensive victory. That's right. That's pretty lame. I mean, unless it's in the rules, which if it's in the rules, that's kind of lame too. But
well, isn't that some Kespa shit where you're not allowed to type anything apart from like GG?
Oh yeah, I remember Stephano. Like they went nuts when Stephano said GLHF. Man, they like almost disqualified his ass.
Because Kespa would literally like there are stories like some kid like his keyboard broke and instead of typing like PP he typed PPP and he got DQ'd from the match. Like Kespa was crazy about that shit in Brood War.
Yeah, I've heard that.
What's PPP? What's triple P?
It was just like you accidentally typed an extra P. You got banned.
That's how nervous he was. He just,
oh god! Oh my god!
Yeah. Kespa was crazy strict.
Okay.
I can't see any Western tournaments having that kind of level. It always seems like you just get off with a slap on the wrist, like don't do it again.
Yeah. That's true. All right, so that's WCS EU. I gotta say something about WCS America. Let me think of something.
Is there anything good going on? I
Oh,
haven't
Jim.
been following
Jim
it.
got his visa.
That's what
Jim-
that shit was at the top
Jim
of Reddit.
got his
I had
visa.
no fucking idea. I was just like, what? Who's this Jim guy, and why am I interested in this?
Well, it's pretty interesting because, the Blizzard folks like Kevin, right, Cloakin from Blizzard. I mean, he got the community to tweet the consulate, or to tweet the consulate office or the count in China, and at first I was like, what's that gonna do, right? Because they couldn't do anything to accelerate the process. But apparently they saw it, right? Because both of the guys, both Jim and I forget the other Chinese player, they both got their visas in time. So I don't know, kind of interesting. I guess it's something that we can do later is tweet
That's
constantly.
that's like
Max
every
says, yeah.
Dota and CS LAN in the history of fucking LANs. All of a sudden, StarCraft 2 players are having trouble with visas, and it's like, oh my god, is he gonna get it in time? When every tournament, it's like, is VP gonna be able to make the international
Well,
or not?
that's true. That's true.
They get their visas 2 days before and can fly out.
Well, league players don't have to worry anymore, man.
No, that's true.
Well, at least not in the U.S. Not in the U.S. They still have to worry about it. Everywhere else.
League players are professional athletes. Get it
That's
right.
right. Let's
Damn,
see.
dude. I'm fucking mad at you. StarCraft isn't even a real esport. Just ask the federal government, bro.
Oh man.
Shit, man, they're looking out.
Man.
Them riot dollars.
Damn, dude.
Oh, what else with America? Oh, I gotta at least say props out to NASL for. If we have to remember that NASL had 6 days to get this shit together for the round of 16.
Props to NASL for going up against the international, man.
It's not their okay. It's not their fault, dude.
No, it's not their fault. Of course not. Of course not. It's not their fault. But that's gotta.
They
that's
say
gotta
some
fucking
people got
suck.
World of
That
Tank.
feeling.
Some people got World of Tank championships to freaking cast too. All right. So.
World of
Yeah,
what?
wait, what? I forgot that TI was going on this weekend because the World of Tanks thing was so huge. I didn't even remember.
That's exactly it. Like, I haven't heard a damn word. You mentioning it right now is the first time I've heard about this World of Tanks thing. Like,
Well,
what?
my bad. Some people have contracts to uphold. Okay, all right, that they had to get because they weren't part of WCS America.
Right. Oh, is this Clutch? Are we talking about Clutch right now?
I'm talking about Clutch. Oh man. Okay. All right. Speaking of TI3, let's move on to. So TI3 group play was this past week, and I mean the numbers are just crazy, man. Crazy, crazy. I'm not sure, Steven, if you saw any of that.
I heard anywhere from 100,000 to 500,000 concurrents based on what was in the client and what was on Twitch.
Yeah, and I think the numbers I saw at the highest was, I think somebody posted 210 on Twitch, 183 in China, and 228 in game. So somewhere in that 600K range, maybe even 700.
I heard
And-
720.
Yeah,
That's
which crazy, crazy
Yeah,
numbers
really
in
count-
aggregate.
Can't count
Which was
Chinese
kind of
people, though.
awkward.
You can only
Oh,
count,
no.
like, the real...
All right, keep going. What?
Isn't it really bad? You can't really count the Chinese people, can you? When you talk about demographics and advertising and everything, isn't China like one of those like black, like the worst place to like count for advertisers or whatnot? Because it's impossible to sell anything over there. Am I wrong on that? Maybe Semmler
you
would
can
let me
sell
know.
you can sell Chinese products there. It's just hard for you to sell.
Well, they have Perfect World over there, so they're going through their own shit. You know?
Oh
It's a
my
utopia,
God.
so they don't need to buy anything. I was always under the impression, from what I've heard from advertisers and shit, is it's really bad. Like, advertising in China is, like, really rough. You don't get much money for it. I know that in terms of, like, demographics, in terms of, like, AdSense and shit, it's always, like, one of the worst areas, but...
Okay, I mean, even if you wanted to ignore those Chinese numbers, okay, you're still looking at like 400,000.
Yeah, no, it's good. Yeah, no,
for
no,
a
yeah,
group
it's good,
play, right? What was amazing is that they were only showing one match at a time, so everybody was casting the same match. And,
What? No.
Right?
No, they were playing matches simultaneously.
Were they? Oh, actually, maybe one
On
night.
different
One night they
different
were.
streams had different matches.
Yeah, maybe it was the one.
I don't
night.
mean to throw you under the bus, man.
Yeah,
God
you're
damn,
right.
we're gonna
you're
get
right.
chewed.
Actually,
What the fuck,
majority
dude?
of the days it was multiple. But the
Even
first
I knew
night,
that.
I was thinking the first night. The first night was a lot of folks casting the same game, and anyway, so I had a question for you guys regarding the client, the in-game client, right? Because a lot of people are. All they've been talking about is just how awesome the in-game client is, and all the viewership from the in-game client, which it is. The in-game client is awesome. I mean, it's amazing. You can choose what casters you want to hear, and all that shit, right? But the thing is that Valve right now, they don't sell ads inside the game, right?
Nope. They do in CS. They don't in Dota.
Right. So what's the big, is there really a big gain for esports and even Valve right now for having like 228,000 people watching in game client?
Yeah, definitely.
Well, go ahead.
I'm pretty sure that Valve's entire everything in the universe revolves around getting as many people as possible to have the Steam client, because Valve has a dollar amount that they value every Steam client at, whether it's because people buy shit during sales or whatnot. So the more people that they can get to have that client, the better, even if it's just by viewing a game, even if they don't buy anything right away. So I mean, yeah, like anything Valve can do to get more people to download Steam, the more money that they know they'll get in the future by people having it.
Yeah, but are just the bystanders, these random people just getting into Dota, really going and downloading the client and going inside the client and watching it? I mean, it's the hardcores, or it's just the gamer, it's the users right now that are doing that.
Yeah,
right?
keep in mind there's like 300,000 hardcores. But
Yeah.
one thing that you have to keep in mind as well is that they are actually using that feature to make sales. They're selling tickets for tournaments through that. So tournaments can then approach Valve and be like, okay, we're organizing this tournament right now. We're gonna have 16 teams, blah blah blah. Here's the format. We want to sell a ticket so that you can watch it in game. And so there's a split of the money. Obviously, the organizers get a portion of it, but Valve get a good chunk of it as well. So that's another thing. It's like, well, sure, you're watching in client, so not only do we have what Steven's talking about with more numbers on Steam and more numbers in the client itself, but then they're using this feature and Valve are still managing to make a cut off of that, which to me just blows my fucking mind. I couldn't even imagine that going through in StarCraft 2 and being like, hey guys, come watch in game and we'll charge you for it. I think everybody would lynch them, but like Dota, like Valve, they just get away with it, and it's.
Yeah, well, so for the other events, I mean, we're not talking about numbers like this. I mean, the numbers are like this for TI3, just because it's their event. They're not charging anything for it when you're inside the game, right? So.
No, they don't. But you have the compendium, which I mean, Valve, as far as they're concerned, they've made.
Yeah,
they've made
compendium's been awesome, but you don't have to buy the compendium either, right? So.
No, you don't.
So they've made a lot from the compendium. So if that seems to be the biggest play, I guess, for that, but. In regards to just people seeing the numbers, there's really not that big a benefit from the standpoint of from the standpoint of like advertisers looking at those numbers right now, at least, because Valve hasn't decided to show ads yet, and I don't know if they are going to or not in Dota 2. It'd be kind of crazy if they didn't, honestly, but at least for now, just the overall benefit to.
You want to know what's really going to fuck with your head is when you think about it this way: that Valve have put a product that doesn't cost them anything really, apart from a few grand and some man hours. They put that into the client.
Yeah.
They've sold this to the community willingly, and they've funded their event with it. Like they've more than enough paid for pretty much everything with it. They're cut. Like this event probably isn't costing them anything.
Oh,
because
it's not. Sure.
You have a quarter of that money that went to increase the prize pool. Okay, cool. But then there's more than enough money on the other side. The other 3/4 pays for the prize pool, probably pays for pretty much everything that's going into this event. This event, which is fucking mind blowing. That's the really interesting part about this whole thing. This whole compendium thing is like they just managed to fund their entire event, and who paid for it? The people who are gonna watch it and consume this. Like. That's all.
The reason why it's mind blowing, and a lot of people don't realize this yet, is you still have all of these organizations running in the red that nobody really thinks about too much. When you talk about like MLG or I'm sure even still NASL, where these corporations or these big companies are still not profiting off of running tournaments. So for Valve to kind of just do it like that, who is relatively not Valve isn't small, but when you think of like who runs tournaments, you don't necessarily think of Valve. So to see Valve do it and to fund it and everything, I think is pretty cool. Although to be fair, I'm not sure. Do you really think they covered all the costs of the tournament?
I'm curious about that. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, how much does it cost to rent? Well, to get Benaroya, the hotels and everything.
I bet it's damn
like
close.
Figures. I'm just throwing that out there, but you can be
close.
sure that a good fucking chunk of that is covered by just compendium sales alone.
We're talking $3 million, over $3 million. That should cover the event.
Well, that's covering the prize pool and then some.
No. $3 million doesn't even include. Well, yeah, it includes the prize pool.
Well, the original prize pool that's coming out of Valve's pocket, 1.6 mil.
Yeah, that's true.
You don't have to worry about that anymore. Then you got like another 1.4 plus, that then is going towards hotel rooms, staff, everything else that they've got going for it. And then that's not to count like everything else that they've got planned for it. I mean, you've got tickets, you've got in-game items that people are, buying by the truckload. You've also got all this other stuff that they're planning for the event itself, the secret shop and all that, the plushies, all this sort of stuff that's coming out that looks fucking sick. Like, I want to buy it all. But, this is the thing. It's like, I want to buy it all. They've thought of every angle to just make a dime off of this. And still, still it's counting as, the Super Bowl of Dota. Like, it's still for the community, but it's not dumbly. They're making.
Well, it's not done like in a like a traditional crowdsourcing type of model, even though the community is paying for it, in a more traditional way, I guess. More traditional consumer type of way, right?
What I want to know is, or I don't know if you guys have covered this in the past or not, but I want to get your opinions on this, is whether or not you prefer this approach, the approach that Valve is taking, which is completely hands-off throughout the year. They don't do anything to apart from a couple of things, they don't do anything to really support, the tournaments that are running, etc. They let the esports communities grow on their own and just manage themselves. And then once a year, they throw the international. They throw a big bang tournament. It covers everything. It's massive. It is the one tournament that they are directly investing in, versus the LoL or the Riot or the World of Tanks, where they're trying to build these leagues around their games. It's just completely different ways of approaching I guess esports, in quotations. So I want to ask, like, which do you think is better, building a league like WCS or LCS or World of Tank League, or just doing a one-off like the international?
What do you think, Steven?
I think, I don't know how closely you share opinions with Too Good, because I'm pretty sure Too Good hates the way that Riot dumps a ton of money into the scene.
Riot, well, anything Riot, James probably hates. But the thing is that Riot as well, they're doing it so well. That's why it's a hard point to make. It's like
honestly,
they're doing the LCS so well. They're shitting all over the WCS as far as that's concerned.
Oh yeah, well that's not even competition.
Yeah, it's not a competition.
Yeah, I wouldn't even point to WCS. I would try to point to something else. But I mean, I think there are legitimate arguments for and against either side. But from a gamer perspective, the Riot model definitely preferable. The idea that you can actually be getting paid a salary to be on a pro team from the game from the game publisher is pretty mind-blowing. Like, that's a really, really nice feeling to know that if you've qualified for that season of LCS, you're actually going to be getting paid a decent salary from Riot for that entire
like
season.
$3,000 a month. It's definitely
I don't what?
Well, there's some wiggle room. There's some wiggle room.
Yeah,
I thought it was like 25 a month to teams. It might be like 15 or 25 a month to team. Yeah, I don't know what the number was exactly, but it was a decent chunk of change. I blew my mind when I read about it. I didn't even know. I was like,
Karn came out. Didn't he come out with not Karn? Oh God, what was the it was the article the blog we talked about like a few weeks ago, Steven. Marn, Team Marn, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Wasn't Team Marn talking a little bit about how much he got?
Yeah.
I mean, when Marn talked about how much he got every month.
So I mean, that kind of stability is really nice from a pro gamer perspective. It's also really hard, and this sounds kind of like a cheap shot, but it's really hard to compare how Riot treats LoL and how World of Tanks is treated by whoever the fuck the World of Tanks people are, because Dota already is preceded by fucking Dota. So it's really hard to say, like, would Dota 2 be as popular as it is without, coming off of Dota? So obviously Valve doesn't have to do as much to build a scene around it, because the Dota 2 scene comes from the Dota 1 scene. So, I mean, like, there's a lot of things you have to take into account when you compare the two different approaches that Valve and Riot have to kind of building up.
What about StarCraft 2 and Brood War? I mean, it's the same thing.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, StarCraft 2 would be nowhere if it wasn't for Brood War. But I mean, Blizzard doesn't have an approach to supporting their game because they don't. So I don't understand the question.
I mean, okay. So let me try to answer. Let me try to answer your question. Let me try to answer your question.
Well, you go ahead.
So I think for the different games, it's actually different. I think a different model works better for different games. So when you're talking about the team games, like the action RTS games, or like MOBA games, I think the league feel, the kind of matches during the week leading up to a giant playoffs, and that sort of model works better than in a 1v1 modeled game like StarCraft, which our community revolves around the tournaments, the weekend tournaments. We get all revved up and hyped up for the MLGs and the DreamHacks and and the
that's
ESLs and
not
what
the
used to
case
be the
here.
IPLs and stuff like that. I mean, that's kind of where the community has always really revolved around. And all these like team leagues and these NESLs and all these leagues, it was more about filling ad space, like ad space and stuff like that, and just making like consistent revenue from these companies, more so than I feel like what the community wants. I mean, we're more like golf. Golf has these major tournaments every year. There's a bunch of other smaller tournaments, where the players make their, they really make their money, and that's the grind of being a golfer. But then the majors are just like where all the hype kind of goes around, and your career is defined by how many majors you win. Or it's like poker too. Your career is defined by how many bracelets you win, not so much that you won this global finals thing at the end of the year. Because even if you win that, you're not necessarily considered the best player in the world in StarCraft because of some of the luck involved.
From what I gather, then you're not very happy with how WCS is.
It's not that it doesn't serve a purpose. It's just I don't think the model is consistent with what like how we feel as a community, like how we gravitate towards events. And
I don't think it's fair to make that assessment without having seen the model done successfully. Like WCS has been a major fuck up from the very beginning.
I mean, we've seen it in Korea. I mean, it's worked in Korea, right? And I mean, we've seen it like with NASL. Okay, like NASL is like a small version of it. And
okay, so at the risk of sounding really dumb or out, could you kind of compare early GSL to how the LCS is ran now, kind of?
How the LCS is?
Yeah, such that you have like players that are competing in these kind of long-standing season bracket things, and you kind of follow their story from the start of the season to the end. I understand like the format is a bit different, but you don't think like the Code S games were comparable at all to how LCS works?
Sure.
It's kind of similar, but that's what WCS is right now. It's exactly that, right? I mean, in a way.
Is it? I guess maybe.
I mean, each of the regions are exactly like that, except
Sure.
for you have this storyline that reaches some kind of final in the very, very end of everything. So it's kind of like that, I guess, to answer your question. But have we seen just a full out just tournament circuit kind of thing in Korea either? Like, again, like I feel like the model was dictated more by purely the business of. I mean, it sounds like it should be an obvious thing. The business of like television, that sort of thing with Kespa, right? But I just know that at least our experience here, in the foreign scene, is that it's just always about tournaments. And I never got like NESL, right? NESL was the closest thing that we had to a league in the U.S. And I didn't really care for the matches until the very, very end of it. It's kind of like baseball, right? Like you don't really care that much about those games for the most part until like the playoffs or
Isn't that how it's always been, at least in StarCraft 2 in particular? It's viewership tells the story. It always starts low at the beginning. It's like round of 32. Okay, we'll be lucky if we break 25K. And then you get closer and closer towards the finals, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, we're into round of 8 now, and we're getting decent numbers.
Right.
Like that's always seemed to be the case with StarCraft, at least. It's
so why would you draw that
like?
Why would you draw those like first day of the tournament or the second day of the first 2 days into like weeks out of the year? You know what I mean? Like why not just have multiple tournaments? Like kind of like what we had about a year ago.
What about Kitten? What are you doing? Okay. No, but what about a league? What about leagues that essentially there's off seasons? You have 2 leagues per year. Each season lasts 3 to 4 months each, and it's culminating in one big tournament that caps off that season, like a Super Bowl or like a Stanley Cup or whatever. Except it's twice per year, and between each season you have a couple months off.
What do you think, Steve?
I mean, like I said, I really like the way that Riot set their shit up. So I mean, yeah.
Yeah, Riot, the LCS. I mean, it's really hard to knock them. Although I prefer their production to anything really. Like the way that they go about actually setting up everything and telling those stories is just fucking fantastic. It's really good. I'm gonna get lambasted for saying that, but whatever. I mean, it's really good stuff. It's hard to hate. It's really hard to hate because as far as the content is concerned, it's very well done, and it's
but
it's
again,
really
like
solid
I feel
content.
like that setup works really well with everybody there. Like all the teams there, right? And
That's the other thing. It's like, dude,
you-
it feel like it comes back to what Steven was kind of saying earlier, or touching on maybe. But the fact that the LCS teams are getting paid a salary. This is a full-time job for them. They are moved into to Cologne, for example, or Los Angeles, or the Los Angeles area, I guess. But they're moved there. That is their job, is to play League of Legends, and they're supposed to be in the studio a certain number of days a week to play their matches, and that's how it goes. So you're able to just have access. But it comes back to also what Steven was saying earlier with the GSL. The players you had access to the players because they were consistently in the studio, so that you can consistently build a story around them. And then you had Artosis interviews with Poopfeast 420. But like,
Also combined with the fact that early Code S, it was really hard to drop from Code S too, which contributed
Truth.
that too, to seeing the same people over and over again. Sorry.
well, I mean, I guess you could. I guess you could have a scenario that's like GSL, but the problem with GSL is that it just happened to. There was like 4 seasons every year or something like that. I mean, like you'd see one guy win the GSL and then drop to Code B like the next freaking season.
that's always been StarCraft too, yeah.
I mean, it's crazy, right? And so maybe if there was less seasons, that you could have this special feeling. I mean, one of the problems with those type of leagues too is that you end up seeing the same type of match, like these matchups that we see, like seeing Alliance play, LGD or Team Liquid or something in a big match like in Dota 2. We would see these matchups all the so it really took away the real special moments, I guess you could say.
That also comes back to oversaturation and like the whole, we're gonna have so much StarCraft that you're not gonna be able to tell the difference between any of them, and the really memorable moments are just gonna blend all together.
Yeah, but we could differentiate those. So that's kind of what we had a year and a half ago. We had too many tournaments, is what people were saying.
I feel like
right?
that's what we're having now, but
What are you
with
talking
WCS,
about? We have
at
like
least.
one tournament that's like.
But you have one tournament, but it's just like StarCraft Europe, StarCraft North America, StarCraft Korea, and it's in a 24-hour cycle basically, and you're just gonna have StarCraft, and then
I can give
StarCraft.
you a list of like a ton of American players that would disagree with you as to like there being too much or tournaments or content right now. I mean, my thing is that even if we had a bunch of tournaments, we could figure out a way to like make certain ones like above the others, considered above the others.
Well, isn't that supposed to be the tier system? Isn't that supposed to be like the WCS Premier League? You have the Challenger League, and you have Tier 1, Tier 2.
It's all WCS though.
And one of those tournaments, Tier 1, is a tournament where everybody doesn't take seriously and just get drunk at. So it's like,
that was every StarCraft tournament.
But it's like, there's no way to differentiate anymore between like what really matters or not. It's just to me it just feels like there's just fucking StarCraft all day long and all night long, and keeping track of it is just now I see it on there and I'm just like, oh yeah, it's more StarCraft.
Yeah, that's why I said it's not
like it's fucking Code S. Like I gotta tune the fuck in right now.
You can't really judge like how well a system like this works because how based on how WCS is doing, because WCS has fucked like everything up so hard. Like, not to brag on WCS again, but I'm just saying what is important? Like when you talk about these WCS matches, like the way that everybody had envisioned it was, holy shit, these are the WCS regionals. Whoever wins WCS NA is the best North American player. Whoever wins WCS EU is the best European player. And like that was supposed to be like relatively exciting. And right now it just kind of feels like, oh, it's like the WCS EU tournament, NA tournament, Korean tournament. Okay, cool. And it's like that's not like, that doesn't, like where's my
finals, like even Innovation winning the global finals, so what? Like I don't think that global finals is any bigger than some of the other Code S GSL titles that some of the past champions have won. I remember those. I probably value them more than Innovation winning the global finals. I mean, it really doesn't feel like that at all right now, and I feel like that's an issue. And you're right, Stephen. It's not executed properly, so it's hard to judge because of it. It's not executed to the fullest. But I just have that. I just sense that feeling that the way that StarCraft 2 is, it's not definitive as to who is like. There's no guy that's just the best at every single matchup. There's always everybody has like a weak matchup, and a lot of their success sometimes, Innovation's pretty close to he's pretty darn good, but even he has weakness too, right? But those tournaments sometimes are determined by just how the luck of the draw comes out. And if you avoid like your worst matchup for the majority of the tournament, you're going to do well. And that's why we see these guys. Some guys win one week, and some guys lose like really early the next week, and that sort of thing. And for me, because it's like that, because the game itself is it's like that. It's hard to define who is like the best right now.
I feel like round robin kind of play, like having these big playoff kind of scenarios. I feel like that nets you a better result for a champion at the end. Does that make sense?
What do you think?
I mean,
Well,
when you talk about like team leagues, like in team leagues, typically like every team will play every other team, and then you kind of get seeding and brackets from there.
Okay, but I mean, we're going to have like a 256 round robin. I mean, that's like.
I mean, it sounds like a joke, but isn't that kind of how the College World Series works in the United States for baseball?
Well, it's broken down into regions. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. I'm just saying. Yeah, and I'm just saying, like in terms of avoiding that bracket luck. It sounds dumb, but that can actually be a really big determining factor in how a player finishes in a tournament. It's where they wind up in a bracket and who they have to play. It can be a really big. It can play a really large role in whether or not you make it to the finals. All right, sorry. What was Semmler saying?
What are you saying, dude? Oh, he's looking for his cat. Or no, he's. Golly. How many cats you got? Oh my god.
I got 3. I got 3 cats. So, right. Cats kind of chased everything out of. What were you guys saying again? I'm sorry.
We're just talking about just the most efficient. So Steven brought up having a giant round robin as like a good way to determine it.
To determine
The
who
best
is
player.
the top.
Just to
the top.
determine who the best player is.
I think you know what I would want to see. I would want to see a month off. I would want to see like a month and a half off in a year. It's like consider it like school, and you have summer vacation. I want to have a month off where players can do whatever the fuck they want. They don't have to play, or they can stream, or they can do whatever they want. Streaming, for example, like players have taken a massive hit because in streaming, now they're having to compete all the time with WCS around the clock. So it's like hurt the streaming numbers. But that's just a random off point. What I would like to see is like time off for players to be able to reconsider their game, rethink their game, rest, recuperate, relax, and then go in fresh into a league, and we can see them in their really top 100% form because they've had a month to just recuperate and think about their game and train, etc. But they do it what they want. They're not traveling to events, dealing with jet lag, dealing with fucking hectic situations. They're just they have that off season where they can think about what they want to do. Or rethink the game, rethink whatever. I'm just saying, like, give them a month off to regenerate, and then throw them into a tournament and see who comes out on top. Then, when everybody's in tip-top shape at 100%, that's what I would want to see. That's when we could really see, like, okay, this guy is still the fucking best because not only this season he won, last season he won, the season before that he won, etc. Because he's had perhaps that time. I'm just wondering if in video games in particular you need to be playing all the time, every day, all year long, and have no fucking time off, or if we did have that month, where it was like nothing was going on, what kind of impact would that have on players? I mean, that's just I'm just throwing that out there because I don't see.
I mean, I agree. I mean, I would love an off season.
That's feasible
too.
right now.
I think an off season is a good idea for esports, just any of the games in particular, because of a lot of the things that you just said. I mean, I don't think that changes anything with the structure or just determining who the best player is, because the game is still structured the same way it is, right? It doesn't matter if you get rest or you get better or anything like that. I mean, the fact of the matter is that there are 3 races. They all have different matchups. They all have different complexities within each of the races. And, is it a matter, I mean, like, I don't know if any of the players can be like the best at every single one of those matchups. To be the best, period, like overall, or just it's just so definitive that this guy is just he's just hands down the best at every single matchup, so he's the best player in the world. It's just hard to determine that in StarCraft at any point.
Yeah, and then you get just knocked out. Like what Innovation lost in Maru last, I think, right?
Yeah,
Wasn't it 3-0?
Innovation got lost to Maru. I mean, look at
He
WCSEU.
just got fucked up.
Look at WCSEU, like.
And this is the guy that people have been saying is the very best in the world for months now.
Right, got beat by a 16-year-old. I mean,
all right, what are we gonna do now? Are we gonna keep chewing at the bit here on WCS, or are we gonna start?
Well, we can take a break now. We're gonna take a quick break, and then we'll come back with.
I need more whiskey.
Need more whiskey? All right, we'll come back with some Q&A, and then I'll let you guys know about this giveaway I'm doing. All right, we'll be back.